AP Cram, the AP Human Geography exam, free response question 24, Demography, Malthus's population theory, food supply. For those of you who are wondering what demography means, it's the study of statistics such as births, deaths, income, or the incidence of disease, and it illustrates the changing structure of human populations. Okay? Remember that Section 2 consists of free response questions. There are 3 questions that should be formatted as short essay answers, and you have 75 minutes to complete them, so allocate your time properly. The free response section is 50% of your exam score. You're required to define and explain and apply geographic concepts and also interpret geographic data. Okay? The food supply has generally grown as predicted by Malthus. That is, the food supply has increased, but it has not kept up with population increase. So identify and explain 6 reasons for this occurrence, okay? And while you're thinking about that, here goes a picture of the food supply. It's basically keeping up with population growth. And then we see here at the point of crisis, population growth exceeds it. And this is because food supply growth is arithmetic or linear, or it can be modeled by the equation of a line, whereas population growth, it starts off slow, but it spirals vertically almost. And that's a form of exponential growth. It can be modeled by an exponential equation. So think about this. 6 reasons. Okay, so the first reason for the occurrence where you had the population outpacing the growth of the food supply is lack of innovation. I'll give you a moment to think about how to explain this. Failure to adopt agricultural innovation will lead to the food supply being less than the population or unable to sustain the population. And this is owing to certain political policies, economic decisions, or even cultural beliefs. A second reason for the food supply growing as predicted by Malthus is basically land conversion. But I'll give you a moment to think about the exact explanation. Well, when land is converted from farmland to urban use, you have a shortage of the food supply that will eventually result, leading to this point of crisis where the population is exceeding the food supply. Another reason why the food supply has generally grown according to Malthus's predictions is because of environmental degradation. I'll give you a moment to explain to yourself or write out why this is. Well, environmental degradation now occurs in the form of desertification, overgrazing, clear cutting, soil erosion, and unavailability of fresh water. So this kind of ties into some agricultural themes that often come up in AP Human Geography. Okay. A fourth reason for the food supply growing as predicted by Malthus has to do with cash crops, but I'll give you a moment to justify and explain this, either in your head or in written form on paper. Well, there has been an agricultural shift from the conversion of life-supporting crops such as food to cash crops like tobacco, sugar, cotton, your tea and coffee that you drink at Starbucks. Okay? All right, so a fifth reason that the food supply has generally grown as predicted by Malthus is because of fuel. I'll give you a moment to justify this and write out an explanation. Don't make it too long, it's pretty brief. Well, rising fuel costs have slowed down the growth of food, and this is because you need fuel to power the technology to reap, harvest, and sow crops, as well as transport them when they're ready for harvest and delivery to the market. So the sixth reason we're going to discuss for food supply generally growing as predicted by Malthus has to do with climate change. I'll give you a moment to write out a concise, correct explanation. Press pause if you have to. Well, obviously, climate change will decrease production. That's because crops need certain climates in order to grow. This is a less controllable reason for a food supply shortage, but maybe human interaction with the environment indirectly affects climate control in ways that will upset the food supply that we can control. So this is something to maybe research a little bit and think about